All right, so I'm going to start recording now, and this will be what goes up on YouTube. I think that microphone might actually be turned up a bit loud, so I'll turn that down a little bit. All right. So, yeah, hello. Just a moment. Phone has like 1,000 notifications on it. All right. So yeah, this will be our first meeting for the 2020 to 2021 school year, and we'll be covering verbs, obviously. For all the new people, we learned Japanese. Basically, yeah, we learn Japanese, but it's difficult to teach Japanese in like 60 minutes, one 60-minute session per week, for a few weeks. So you kind of have to study on your own if you actually want to pick up the language and be able to use it. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to provide resources and supplemental stuff that you're not going to get in typically like when you search how to speak Japanese. I kind of want to cover the stuff that they won't cover in there, or go into more detail to kind of solidify that kind of stuff. So we have resources and stuff. All the lectures that we do are recorded, and all the slides are posted into a Google Drive, and you can find those on the Discord. We don't cover hiragana and katakana because those are really easy to learn on your own, but we do use them. So anyone new, please try to pick those up on your own time. See, for everyone else, yeah. I don't really want to focus too hard on stuff that we went over in other stuff, like last year or the year before. I'm still always looking for feedback to see what you guys know, what you guys don't know. If you think you kind of know something but don't really understand it, we can go over and kind of strengthen or explain things more. If you think that you've heard something too many times, tell me and I won't cover it. If anyone else has anything that they want to present ever, go ahead and message me, and I can let you teach something or something like that. But before we get started, if everyone can check the Discord in the World Languages Club under, I believe, resources, there's a pinned message that allows you to take attendance. So if everyone can go ahead and do that quick.
Why did I, for some reason, think it was October already?
Because you're a moron, Eric.
Did you put your birthday for the date?
No, I for some reason thought it was October.
Well, as long as you didn't put your birthday for the date, you're good.
I wish it was October.
Yeah, I could be drinking by now.
Yeah, isn't Tyler the first one to attend Japanese club back in like the 90s, late 90s?
What?
What?
I'm pretty sure Tyler submitted his birthday or something.
Oh,
Oh,
2001.
yeah.
Yeah, he was
That
attending.
would have been me with 1999.
Oh yeah, because you're older, so yeah. That was funny.
It's like, please don't be putting your birthday into random forms. As a cyber ops major, I have to tell you that's a bad idea. Anyway, since it's the first lesson this year and we have new people, probably, and for everyone else, I thought it would be a great idea to cover verbs because, yeah, conjugation is fun. And it seems like a lot of people fail on that. Can you plug me in quick? Thanks. Yeah, verbs. Verbs are one of the two main parts of sentences, being subjects and verbs. So they're kind of one of the two most important things to learn how to do in Japanese. So to start out, basically there's two types of verbs in Japanese. Verbs ending in u and verbs ending in ru. And then we can get into the two different forms, the formal and informal verbs in Japanese, where u would become imasu and ru would become masu as far as the endings go. And in addition to that, you have two different types, or two different meanings for verbs. You have the positive and the negative. So can become anai, ru becomes nai, imasu becomes imasen, and masu becomes masen in terms, and these all go on these all deal with the endings of verbs. And any verb in Japanese can actually be negated to mean the opposite of what it normally means. To continue off of that, you can make questions by adding ka at the end of a verb, and you can turn a verb into past tense by adding ta. You also have te form, where you replace the final syllable of the verb with te to link sentences and indicate that there's other stuff after the verb, basically when you want to use two verbs in a sentence or use something as an adverb. Am I going too fast for everyone? Yep. But luckily, we're not doing conjugate. We're not doing all of our conjugation today. We can definitely cover more later on if people want, except for the te. If anyone wants to learn more about the te form of verbs, that's going to be entirely its own lesson because it's messy and complicated, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with te forms. If you were here last year, we had a few examples of all of these things, and we covered a lot more verbs. And you can find all that stuff in the Discord server. So, until then, let's fake it until we make it. Basically, you're allowed to sound cringy because you're not actually in Japan. If you practice alone in your room or alone in here, nobody's going to judge you. So you can try to sound Japanese without actually knowing much Japanese. To do this...
I could just, bully myself, so...
Yeah. So instead of actually... Because I want to start using some verbs and using them in sentences, you can kind of do this with anything, where if you don't know a word in Japanese, basically just say it, just take the English word and say it like you're speaking Japanese. Like, for example, I have on here the word trainer. They would say torena. Trainer becomes torena, which, if you understand the hiragana and katakana aspect of Japanese, it's a phonetic language, so you can take any one of... They have a certain number of syllables that they can say, and you just replace English words with those syllables until it sounds as close to the English as you can get it. So let's try this out. For my first example, we have the verb sumu, which means to reside, or like you live in a place. Our first example sentence will be, the hobbit lives in a hole. And over here you can see we have my attempt at weebifying this sentence. So to kind of put it into Japanese-esque, a hobbit can become hobito, and hole can become horu, to make it sound like it's a Japanese word without quite being a Japanese word. then we can practice using the word sumu. So in this example, the hobbit lives in a hole would become Habito-san wa horu ni sumu. Similarly, we can practice conjugation by saying the hobbit does not live in a hole. Habito-san wa horu ni suminai. See? It's very easy changing a verb to its negative form if we remember that u becomes inai and ru becomes nai. Next up, let's try the other form. In the last one we had an u verb which became inai. In this one we're going to use the verb dekakeru, which means to leave. This means like when you leave a building, you would use the word dekakeru, you leave a place. So for our example, the UK is leaving the EU. UK would become UK wa, and EU would become EU. UK wa EU ni dekakeru. To turn that into the negative form of the sentence, we would go UK wa EU ni dekakenai. That's our example of a ru verb doing the same thing. So, fairly easy so far, right? Let's go down another hobbit hole here, returning to the hobbit sentence. This time we're going to be using the other form, or the other form, the polite form of the verb sumu, which is sumimasu, where we would take any u verb ending in u and change that u ending to imasu. So sumu becomes sumimasu. And our example sentences become Habito-san wa horu ni sumimasu. And to negate that, we simply add a sen at the end. Instead of masu, it becomes masen. Habito-san wa horu ni sumimasen. The hobbit does not live in a hole. Similarly, with ru forms of verbs, dekakeru would become dekakemasu. You remove the ru entirely and replace it with masu, rather than replacing only the u with an imasu. Our example sentences then become UK wa EU ni dekakemasu and UK wa EU ni dekakemasen. Does that make sense to everyone? I didn't really have much time to come up with other examples, but I'm sorry. I was rushed on this one. But yeah, these should be fairly simple. You can see that last year, I pulled up this slide that we had from last year, where we went over all of the core verbs. And you can see in all of these, suru, desu, naru, aru, these are all the base dictionary forms of the verbs. And these are what would be considered the impolite versions of verbs. And you can see that they all definitely follow this pattern of ending in u. And you could take any one of these verbs, such as tsuku, which means to arrive. You could replace the u ending with imasu, making tsukimasu. So yeah, that's all that I actually have for this meeting, because I tried and failed to write a song that would help everyone remember conjugation. So I apologize for that. But yeah, going forward in our meetings, I would definitely focus on going back to these core verbs, if you can remember them, if you can pull up the old slides, and trying to really get these core verbs down and practice conjugating these. Like when you're going through these core verbs and studying them, it's best to try to use them and conjugate them. So don't simply make up example sentences like, I want to wait here, or I want to meet you here. Make up example sentences like, I met this person here. That way you can practice, past tense conjugation, or I didn't learn anything at this meeting because Andy's an idiot. So you would use this good old verb to learn, and it would become manabinai. If that makes sense to everyone. So yeah, I'm going to stop the recording here because it's not really going to make much sense what we're doing after this to everyone watching. Where is my mouse going? Can I pull it back to my other screen? There we go.